Welcome to the Black Doctors Talk podcast. I am Dr. Christopher Holmes, host for this episode and member of the Black Doctoral Network. Today, I am joined by Dr. Keyonda Smith, who is an academic practitioner, researcher, and digital accessibility and health consultant. Welcome, Dr. Smith. How are you doing today?
I'm making it. I'm getting by. With everything that's going on, I think I'm doing fairly well.
Well, I'm excited to have you on as a guest and have you share with all of our viewers and our listeners. So let's jump right into it. I want you to tell them a little bit about yourself and tell them, where does it all begin for you?
Okay, well, once again, I'll try to keep it short. I'm from Camden, New Jersey. I'm a kid of the 80s, and I always wanted to be an attorney from looking at my favorite TV shows. I loved Law and Order, LA Law, Ally McBeal back in the 80s and 90s, and they made me think that being a lawyer was like the ultimate sign of success, because they all lived in these high-rise office buildings, and they had these intra-office dramas with mysterious fact patterns that were not seen in everyday life. So whenever anyone would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would always answer with lawyer. And although I thought that lawyers were always extremely busy, I didn't understand the back end of it. I didn't understand the poverty that was associated with being a lawyer, and how I would most likely never be able to make enough to pay off law school and be frustrated by the time investment. And I didn't know what it really looked like. I didn't know any lawyers. My mom is a trained accountant, and my father works at Campbell's Soup. He always has, and in Camden, New Jersey. And we don't have any lawyers in our family. However, being a product, of my environment and in the inner city, I unfortunately, but fortunately, became a negative statistic, and I found myself pregnant with the baby Jesus at the age of 15. So at 15, they were calling me the Virgin Mary. That's how that happens.
Yes.
Yes. My daughter is 25 today, so I'm in the clear. She's 25 years old now, but it was a struggle back then as a 15-year-old. And, it did, but I didn't let it deter me. It just made my path a little bit more challenging. And a college degree was normal in my family. And my mom and dad are both college graduates. And, like I said earlier, I'm not the first doctor. However, I would have been the first lawyer. So that was my goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But after fumbling through high school with a 2-year-old daughter, I enrolled at Virginia Union University. And during my sophomore year, I got married, the first marriage, and ended up completing my BS at the Naval Air Station in Jacksonville, Florida. Whew.
You traveled from north to south.
Yeah, because I was at Naval Air Station and I went to school on base there. And that was a challenge to finish my BS there, but I managed to make it happen. And now you would think, okay, you finished your BS, time for law school, right? Yep, I'm excited. Took the LSATs. I got all my books and, figured out, my schedule and everything. First day of class was great. Second week of class was awesome. After the first semester, I quit.
What happened? You realized this is not it for me.
I think it was more so after understanding the reality of being a solicitor. I kind of realized that it wasn't going to work for me.
Yeah.
So I went back to the military base and I started teaching high school math and science with a company called Teach for America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I finished my master's, and I learned about a profession, and it was in health and wellness. So I started my first I'm actually, my first doctorate is in health and wellness, and I finished that program. However, while on residency, I realized that I am physically lazy, but I still need to make money. So one of my professors explained to me how a PhD could help me with the issue of being lazy. So I went back on base once again and I started my journey to earning my PhD. And I completed my PhD and I was off and ready to start my career in training future doctors.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, I tried to make it like real basic and short for you.
And we all know who have the PhD know that was not an easy journey by itself. That alone has another story, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So now you work in this digital field. What sparked the interest there?
Well, I will say that my accessibility career break actually initiated when I first entered graduate higher education.
Mhm.
And the industry kind of like steered us towards a focus onto digital side of learning and recognizing the gaps were in our lack of universal design for learning and educational equity, you know, how we measuring advanced graduate competencies. So
Yeah.
in order to fill that need, I tried to find my niche, and I always tell my students, what's your thing? What's your thing? And so that's how I found my thing in this digital environment, because I knew that this is where it's going to be.
Have you had challenges since you've been in it?
Oh goodness, have I had challenges? My
Yeah.
geez, yes. Are you referring to challenges at work, with clients?
Challenges in what you do to deliver the work and especially in your teaching, and then how people respond to what you're trying to give them, like levels of resistance. Are they open to it? Because we know now, especially now in the pandemic, technology has like exploded. It's literally everywhere and people are having to use it in ways they've never done it before. And you mentioned the word equity, which I am very, very keen to when I hear it. So talk a little bit about your job and what you do, how people respond to you, and then this conversation centered around equity. That's a loaded question.
Well,
No.
it is. It is. I'll do my best and let me know if I succeed at this or not. But and when I think about the institutional landscape that comprises of various key stakeholders who who try to undertake positive steps towards accessibility, they are often falling short, and it's usually due to red tape.
Mm,
And you know, organizations that claim to be all these advocates for accessibility, um, then they put forth a genuine effort to make digital accessibility a reality, but then they perceive profits as being lower just due to the relative narrow market, and this eventually diminishes their overall efforts. And I will also say that some organizations and institutions, they are inadvertently being slowed down in the overall process, just due to the extent of their organization or the institution having so many tentacles and stakeholders with dichotomous agendas, objectives, goals. In this kind of environment, you know, a novel digital accessibility effort can encounter issues like dualisms that include profit versus human rights,
yeah.
the market share versus accessibility, competition versus inclusion. Oh, the list, you know, the list
Yeah.
goes on. It's just too bad we don't have enough time.
Yeah. I mean, so I like what you said because there's so many initiatives now, even when I think about cultural awareness, diversity, and like you said, inclusion, that people are making efforts. Um, do you see that oftentimes when the red tape is there, they are unaware of what those barriers are in the organization, or they see them but they don't know how to remove them?
Yeah, they don't understand the human resources and fiscal resources that are required in executing digital accessibility. Um, and they're not prepared for that investment usually because it wasn't in their budget or whatever. whatever, that they're responding to a lawsuit, something like that. So now they come in and unprepared for this type of overhaul of their curriculum or their content, usually in their LMS. Sometimes it's in their classroom, which is tough as well. I was with a major university down in Atlanta, and I went and did their accessibility there, and it was mainly in their classrooms. They were using things like clickers and things like that, which you would think were great engagement tool, but they're totally inaccessible.
Yeah.
So then they're like, well, we asked the students if they want to text, use their phone to text. I said, what's phone? That's accessibility as well, because accessibility also means access.
Yes.
So to ask a student to text their answers in while some other students get to use clickers, they are now being put at a disadvantage because of their disability.
Yeah.
And that's not fair. And
Yeah.
that's where it comes into the equity issue, and it's a human rights issue as well.
And I think what you said is key, that they think what they are doing is providing access and equity, with in essence is due to their ignorance, that they're almost creating even more problems for themselves. How do you, or are you even able to help people understand that if you're going to do this, you have to prioritize it, which means it has to be number one at the top of the list, which means you have to push some things to the side. And if you tell them that, how do they negotiate what has to go in order to prioritize digital accessibility?
Well, I don't even really have to sell it, because interestingly, it's a federal law. So that alone is enough to get fire under their butts. I don't tell them that you may have to sacrifice, or you may have to, take this for that. Nope, I don't care how to get it done. It's actually federally mandated. It's
Yeah.
a legal requirement, and it's carried out through the Office of Civil Rights. And once I get on with corporate counsel, like whoever's their representative in their legal department, and I start talking to them about it, and I showed them some of the paperwork as far as the lawsuits that have been passed down and what they would have to do to cater to meet those if they were ever dinged on that. They are usually my first advocate, and then they go to upper leadership, and then it goes down the ranks that way.
Yeah. Listen, legal pursuit always encourages people to do the right thing. So if that's the angle that has to be taken, hey, I'm here for it. So let me ask you another question, because you did talk about engagement. I want you to talk a little bit about why technology is so important as it relates to learner engagement.
Well, there's an overabundance of empirical research that indicates how we can use technology for engagement. And in these research studies, they indicated that students are feeling that the technology increases their knowledge attainment, and that they were more interested in the lesson. They felt more engaged when they received immediate feedback during the course session,
Mhm.
and how using LMS or course technology, it positively impacted the outcomes of our English language learners. They are one of my biggest accessibility issues as well. And lastly, by integrating technology with instruction, it positively has been found that it impacts the affective learner behavior. And that alone is a significant selling point.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I work in education, so I cheer everything you just said. I wish I could just get more people to understand how to use it. And it's not an event to use technology. It's a part of your everyday practice. So kids shouldn't be like, oh my God, we're going to use a computer today. Like, no, we use computers every day as a part of our instructional tools and processes. And so that's an issue. And so when I talk about resistance, that's what I see, that it's coming sometimes from adults who don't feel competent about how to use it successfully. So therefore they just don't use it at all. But it becomes an issue for students, because it diminishes their access to information and the way they can process it and receive it.
Yes, Absolutely. You got it. You got it, Dr. Holmes.
So, why is your work important? Why would you say at the end of the day, what you do is so important for where we are right now in the world?
So why it's important is, well, I would say first you have to think about that it's a federal requirement, right?
Mhm.
And it's a legal ramifications if they are not adhered to. And if you have, then there are often those ambulance chasers as well as people who really should be complaining, and have some that are continuously suing schools, and it's like the same players. And believe it or not, that does happen. They just go around to different schools and they sue them, because you don't have to be directly impacted by the inaccessible content. You can just know that the content is inaccessible, and that allows you to be able to undergo the legal proceedings. So that is why it's super important right now. And we are in an environment where everyone is learning online. Therefore, more than ever, accessibility is important, because we have double, triple the amount of people that are using digital technologies. And, it's going to increase the chance of you getting someone in your class who may not be able to access your content, or who may not be able to fully participate in the learning experience due to your pedagogical. Try to educate as well as intercept whenever possible. That way we don't have to worry about going through the Office of Civil Rights and then being accused of human rights issues.
And I think when you say that, that alone, you talk about human rights issues, that's not something people connect with learning and education. They just don't. They see it being, when people think human rights, they think starvation or adequate living accommodations, but it's way more than that. And it's way more than that. And so I think what you do helps bring awareness to broaden people's understanding of human and civil rights. So first, just thank you, because once again, I told you before, you are the only person that I know that does this kind of work. I've never heard of it. It intrigues me, but I'm glad that it does exist, because it supports actually the work that I do every day. And so
Yes.
now I have somebody I can call on and say, hey, I need some help here. I need some help, some clear understanding. I've got an issue with a particular environment, and there is a lack of equity in technology. And then you'll give me some free
Yes.
tips.
I like how you said free.
free
Yes.
tips on how to help them. So let's talk about this, because I know you do work with government and corporate entities with healthcare and health technology. Does that look a little bit different? I know government agencies function a lot differently than we would say like in schools. It's just, I don't know if it's a hierarchy, the power structure that exists there. Do you prefer to work more in those environments versus working with a school, or do they both serve the same purpose for you?
Yeah, they both serve the same purpose for me. Training is training. I typically, just because of my background, I typically train postgraduate professionals, like doctoral level continuing education, things like that. So I'm usually working in an environment where it's more postgraduate education. And so I have not done K-12 since Teach for America.
Yeah.
So I don't do a lot of accessibility with K-12. And I think that's where we have our EDDs. I think that's a great place for them. And I think that, if we can get more EDDs interested in accessibility, that would be the space where they can really grow.
Yeah.
As a PhD in K-12, I don't think I'm really giving the students what they need from me. And I think that, personally, I do better in a postgraduate environment. And I do know my EDDs do extremely well with being able to bend and flex to meet the needs of, because in K-12, you don't only have students, you also have their parents. And
Yes.
that's not something that I'm equipped to handle. So, and I haven't been trained on how to handle that. I don't know anything about that. So I'm just like, at the end of the day, I'm a researcher and, I'm a practitioner. The psychology behind education. And, our educational technology professionals also would benefit in the K-12 environment. They don't do that well in higher ed just because of the need for more advanced systems. They don't really, they're not trained for it. They're not educational technologists to the point where it's needed for higher ed. It's usually for maintaining a server for the students that are on campus at a high school, not 6,000 students who live there and are using the internet 24/7 and they never leave. Like, they're
Yeah.
they're not used to that kind of maintenance and management. And I've noticed a difference when working with my ed tech and IT professionals. Like, they really had a hard time with the higher ed because of the structure
Yeah.
of it versus K-12. So I wish we had more technology level ed tech, IT on the accessibility side who could really help out in higher ed. I think there's a need for that.
And you really hit on something when you said if you had more EDDs that you were working with, because I think one that's going to help with, as we talk about instructional leadership, technology usage is a big part of instruction. And number two, if we can get more kids with technology in their hands, when they graduate and go secondary, post-secondary, there are some expectations with technology that they are supposed to know how to do that they have probably never done. So not just is it a learning curve, it's a skill curve for them too, because they haven't had access to equitable technology. So you're listen, I think we're on to something here. We may have to partner up and go and make some changes in K-12.
I mean, once again, that's an access, that's an
Yeah.
accessibility. That's accessibility and it's an access issue. And that is a sector of it that is not really that's a gap that is not really being filled. I don't know anyone who does K-12 accessibility. I just know instructional designers who have kind of taken on that task, but they haven't properly trained in accessibility. Like, they're not presenting at conferences and publishing papers and, doing all that, but they're just doing it just experience. And there are some things that you don't want people to learn on the job, like being a doctor, things like that. You kind of want them to be trained before they get into the operating room.
Yeah, that will be important. So let me ask you this question. Let's move a little bit in another direction. Who has had a tremendous impact on you in your career?
The user experience.
The
end user experience. Without that insight, then, what is all this for? I work for them. I work for the users.
Wow, that's a great way to answer that question.
That's it, Dr. Holmes. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, because that drives what
it's just the user experience.
Yeah. So what is one thing you wish you would have known earlier in your career?
I learned from a very wise person a long time ago to not spend major time on minor things. I'm sure you've heard this before. Now, I define minor, I'll say major time as a block of time that's uninterrupted, where I can fully concentrate on completing, analyzing, thinking about something I'm about to do. And the best way, I guess, I can classify major time is when I'm completing this task. Have I kind of advanced the dial on the quality of my life that corresponds with any type of upward mobility? And I define minor time as things like checking social media, checking personal email, grocery shopping, checking the news, unnecessary meetings and beatings that should have been an email. I also wish that I knew that it's not normal to set myself on fire to keep others warm, and over the years, I've learned not to get my value from how much I give to others and to focus on how much I give myself. Uh, in other words, I've learned how to help others without sacrificing myself.
Yeah, I think that's important. That's important. I like that. I like that saying um, about keeping people's warm, catching yourself on fire to keep people warm. I've never heard that before, but I like that. So, in the field that you're in right now, is there any one piece of advice you would give somebody who's watching this interview or listening, and they want to pursue a career in what you're doing? Is there anything you would say to them to put them on the proper trajectory?
Now, I know you said one piece of advice, but I usually have my same spiel that I give to everyone that is interested. They're like, Dr. Smith, I'm going to live like you. I'm trying to be like you. And I always tell them, earn a postgraduate degree, get certified or train, go to conferences, build a strong portfolio, and also join several digital organizations that are centered on accessibility.
I think all of those are wonderful pieces of advice to give somebody that wants to do what you're doing. So you're right. There's not one. There's more than one. And I think all of those are great.
It's tough. I know you asked for one. Sorry.
No, I think I love them all. I think I'm gonna start doing that. I can't give you one. There's more than one. Okay. What would you say in terms of skills that you possess? What's one thing that's inside of you that has helped make you successful?
I would probably say that I am really strong at working independently without supervision. And I have a strong sense of self-efficacy. And, my internal unwavering motivation is something that I find that has been a benefit to me.
Now I have another question for you. What are you most proud of so far in your life?
Oh, geez. I'm most proud when I introduce accessibility to an organization and when that mental light turns on, it's like the highlight of my life. And when leadership, even corporate, they've never even considered digital accessibility. Yet it's a federal law how that happens, but it happens all the time. Yeah. Or when I share the civil rights litigation statistics and I demonstrate how we can make accessibility happen for them and they get on board and then they start to sell it to everyone else. It's like the best feeling in the world when I can be in on a meeting and I don't even really have to say anything because I already have leadership that are selling it. They're pushing it. They're selling it. So I think those are the most proud moments, in my career.
Awesome. I love it. So you're doing great work. What's next? Where do you see yourself going from here?
I really plan on focusing more heavily on accessible advanced technologies. And currently, I'm developing an introduction that centers on accessible virtual reality and gamification for postgraduate. And in the future, I absolutely plan on conducting introductions and peer-reviewed research that's grounded on healthcare faculty, professional and curriculum development, create accessible advanced technologies, for healthcare learners.
I can't wait. So you've got some work to do. So you're going to be in this thing for a little while longer, apparently, because there's a lot of things that you still want to do, which is great because it keeps you motivated.
Yeah, I'm in too deep. There's no turning back.
She's in too deep, y'all. I love it. No shallowness here. It's all deep.
In too deep.
So here's another question.
But I need help. I do need help, Dr. Holmes.
You need help?
I need help. It needs to be more of us.
Yeah, I agree.
There needs to be more of us.
For me to say that you're the first person I met that does this work, you're right. You're absolutely right. There needs to be more of you. But if they're not coming with the same level of passion, then we don't need them.
Yes, absolutely.
We need them to be just as serious about this as you are. Here's my last question for you.
Absolutely.
How has your affiliation, or how do you hope your affiliation with the Black Doctoral Network will enhance your career?
Well, over the last years, I've been able to participate in several activities and build my professional portfolio based on some of the sponsored activities. And, my affiliation with this organization, the Black Doctoral Network, is a significant resource for my professional development and relationships.
Well, we're happy to have you be a part of BDN. It's the great minds like you that we love to say we are so proud to be connected to, because you share and give so much back, not just to the community, but to the world itself. And so thank you for what you do. Thank you for being a part of us. We appreciate you and we value what you bring to the table. And we're excited about what the future holds for you. It has truly been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Smith. If you don't mind, will you please tell our viewers and listeners where they can go to learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Sure. So you can visit my website. It's www.kmsmithphd.com.
There you go, Dr. Kate. Say it one more time so they can get it.
www.kmsmithphd.com.
You guys got it. Make sure you go check it out. Now, listen, while you go checking that out, also be sure to check us out on all of our social media channels. Thank you for joining us today for the Black Doctors Talk podcast. We hope that you will join us next time. But until then, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend about us. We want them to join too. Thank you guys so much and have a great day.